like this, that school should start earlier. It would give children more time to do after-school activities and extracurricular things. Well, here's one more thing to think about. Would this type of starting time make it easier on the parents? In the U.S., most parents have to leave at a certain time to get to work, let's say around 6 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Parents would be able to drop off their students at the same time before heading to work. Being able to make it to work during this time is crucial, and being late can send you into overtime. And if you already have a job, then you know that being late could affect the amount you get paid in future promotions. On Forbes.com, it was estimated that 5 out of 6 Americans are late on a daily basis. That's almost 10% of all Americans. And so it was estimated that 1.5% of all these people were women staying home with their children and waiting till the daycare started. If school starting time was at 7:25, it give parents more time to get ready for work and enough time to get useful. Even if school starting time was changed, you still would be there at the same amount of time. Physiology Today also states that keeping the length of the school day the same, but changing the start time from 7:15 a.m. to 8:40 a.m. or from 7:25 to 8:30 a.m. results in the same improvement in functions for students and teachers. Like my teammates have already stated, this could leave you with more time to use freely, especially for those who participate in sports and athletic activities that can take up to 3 hours a day, and events can take much longer. Some high school students that participate in after-school sports stay after and return home around 5 to 6:30 a.m. That's a long time to practice. If you are the kind of kid who doesn't like staying at school till 2:37, then this will be a good thing for you. And if you're the kind of person who likes going to parades, you don't want to have to be in class in this St. Patrick's Day parade. Those things are great. And they usually take up till around 1 p.m. close to the end of the day, and instead of missing almost a fourth of the parade, you could instead miss 2 hours of it. You'd make it in time for candy necklaces, so next time you're asked if you want to start school earlier, you should say yes, because look at all the freedoms you get from starting your day a little earlier. It's amazing what you can accomplish just by starting the day a little earlier.
The other team talked about how student athletes may miss less classes when going to away sporting events, but this isn't as helpful as it seems. Imagine this. You're a student from Prairie Point who plays basketball on today's game day. It's an away game at Harding Middle School. You get out at normal times with all of your peers. However, your coach informs your whole team that you have to wait 50 minutes because Harding gets out at 2:50 and is only 15 minutes away. So you sit in the cafeteria, anxious and bored, until the coach finally announces you can board the bus. By the time your team gets to Harding, you're not energized anymore. And scene. That is the future getting out earlier would cause. Many schools around Prairie end around the same time Harding does, so this would occur frequently and in all sports. Clearly, student athletes may be excused from fewer classes, but overall, getting out earlier would cause delays and problems to arise, so Prairie Point's schedule should remain as it is. The opposing side said their new schedule could create more family time. Sure, supposedly, getting home earlier could increase time spent with family, but that is assuming parents will be home by then. Some parents get home around 5 or 6 o'clock anyway, so it's not like this time they'll see their kids will be increased in any way. Those families would have to leave their children alone, unattended for a few hours until they get home. This could be harmful and extremely dangerous. Some families rely on the school to keep their kids monitored and safe while they're gone at work, so letting them go home earlier, before parents are home, is not desired by any means. Therefore, to the majority of families, an earlier schedule would put kids at risk and make no change in family time at all. My opponent may say that transportation to and from school would be simpler if new times were created. However, evidence against that prevails. Prairie Point's principal explained how times were any earlier or later, the buses would be conflicted. The buses would have to wait an hour after dropping Point students off before they can start the high school and elementary route. That is not efficient use of the buses and could possibly lose the district some money. On the other hand, some students are driven to school by parents. For me, this is important because my dad drives me to school and then goes to work. If that schedule changed, he wouldn't be able to drive me anymore because he would get to work too early. Many families like mine would also run into conflicts similar to this. Evidently, the proposed schedule would harm transportation. The easiest way to solve this problem? Keep the starting time the same as it is, the same as it always has been.
I'm According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 52% of all automobile deaths occur during 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., which leads our group and some experts to believe that it has a direct link to school start time. We need to keep our school start time where it is because an expert, Tara Snyder, said, research confirms a relationship between school start time, sleep deprivation, student performance, as well as depression, impulse control, tobacco and alcohol use, impaired cognitive function, and decision-making, obesity, stimulant abuse, automobile accidents, and suicide. Mounting evidence about the biology of adolescent sleep and about the impact of later start time shows that starting school before 8 a.m. not only undermines academic achievement, but endangers health and safety, because logistical and financial issues prevent local school systems from establishing safe and educationally defensible hours. However, legislation mandating school start times consistent with student health and educational well-being is essential. This is important because Prairie Point doesn't want to be known as a school that promotes sleep deprivation, tobacco and alcohol use, obesity, suicide, and so much more. Speaking of sleep deprivation, there's a doctor who's an expert in it. Teenagers need over 9 hours of sleep a night, and it looks like a large number of teens aren't getting a sufficient amount of sleep. Part of that relates to the time that high schools begin. So study Arthur, Dr. Robert Bruno, an associate professor in international medicine and division of sleep medicine in Eastern Virginia Medical School in Norfolk. This is important because sleep deprivation mainly affects people between the ages 12 to 25, which is where we are, and can make learning harder and leads to tobacco and alcohol use, obesity, and suicide. Therefore, Prairie Point needs to keep the school start time where it is and not move the start time earlier for your sake and for mine. As my teammate stated earlier, our team has interviewed Prairie Point's principal, Greg Leadham. He stated that the main reason that we have the start time where it is at 7:50 is because the school district doesn't have enough buses. The decision to change the start time took a lot of time and effort to change. And that's when it only changed 10 minutes. How much useless time and effort would be needed to change the start time from 7:50 back to 7, which, by the way, is 5 times longer than the change from last year, which brings me to my next point. Why would the principal change the start time to an earlier time when evidence shows that it leads to sleep deprivation, tobacco, student performance, depression, mood swings, bad impulse control, tobacco and alcohol use, obesity, stimulant abuse, and suicide? To think all this could be avoided by simply letting students sleep for an extra couple of minutes. So with that, I urge you to take some time out of your day and think about 4 words. Is it worth it?
My opponent may say that having schools having a later school start time can improve student health, but I disagree. The great advantage of starting school earlier in the day is getting an early release. Students have time to pursue other extracurricular activities in the daylight rather than in the dark. Many students take on after-school jobs at a certain age to bring in extra income for their personal wants. Mike Fuentes of PSB explains that jobs can build student reliability, stay on track and graduate, and recognize the benefits of small degree of financial independence. Parents want to be able to teach their children responsibility. What better way than to make them go to school and go to work and be able to manage them both at the same time? Therefore, school starting before 8 a.m. can help benefit teens and their after-school activities, and also it can help parents be able to teach their children about responsibility. My opponent may also say that there can be fewer absences with the later school start time, but I disagree. I disagree because it is ultimately safer for some campuses to start school early. Schools didn't start before 8 a.m. until the 1900s. So Pearl Center said in some cases it was the older students in earlier slots to prevent younger kids from waiting in the dark at the bus stop, and to allow older students more time after school for extracurricular activities. This is helping keep younger children safe from the night, but not just the night, but the things that are in the night. Therefore, students starting later might prevent many accidents, but think of how much safer it will be for children in elementary schools. They will feel more safe knowing that they don't have to wait in the dark. Teens might start complaining about school starting earlier, but they won't be thinking about the benefits it will be having on the younger children and how much safer it will be for them. How much safer it will be for them. It is ultimately selfish of the teens to not think about them.